Hello, and we're going live here, of course. Somebody texted me just as soon as I go live, and I thought I'd turn off my phone, but they didn't. And that's why we're going live, because we want to iron things out a little bit early before I officially open the stream. So this is Monika Wahi, and thank you if you're already showed up here. Um, but hopefully you'll show up as this live stream starts. I decided to have it kind of at the last minute, but I realized really had to get something up about SAS and showing myself using the SAS um, to show people that it's really not that hard to use SAS on demand for academics and to whet people's appetite for SAS. Well, hello. Thank you for coming. You'll see I'm gaining some agility with this software. Thank you for showing up. We'll see if I get more people. I'm trying to build an audience here. Um, so where I am, it's noon. And so if you're having brunch, if you're in a time zone near mine, hopefully you're having a Bloody Mary, or maybe you're having some tea. I have some tea over here, and you're enjoying your Sunday. In the Middle East, they're working today, so I don't know. Maybe you're productive. You're in the Middle East being productive. Hey, he showed up. I'm so glad you're here. I'm like Daniel's biggest fan, because this guy, what is he doing here? He knows everything about SAS, but I'm going to teach him about R. See, it's the exchange. Hello, hello. Nice to see you. I'm glad people are showing up because, oh, and hello. I'm glad you showed up. Alexandria, I'm glad you're here. Thank you. I'm glad more people are showing up, because I'm hoping excuse me, I'm hoping people can network, like people who are interested in the same, because data science is so big, right? So if I say SAS and then you show up to this, then you're interested in SAS. And so, not that there's anything wrong with Python, but if you're like, well, I came here to talk about SAS, and this person's talking about Python and I don't know Python, that way we can get like, it's just topical. I mean, I'm not against talking about Python, but I don't know Python, so I do more listening than talking and asking questions. But I know a lot about SAS, so I can hold the live stream on SAS, right? And keep you all entertained. Um, I'm so glad you're showing up. Thank you for coming and supporting my live stream and making chat start, making it interesting. So I'm just kind of running this a little bit like I kind of imagine this like a classroom, and people are coming into the classroom before I start the official lecture. I know, like, if I were more elegant, I'd find a way to put up the live stream is starting. Excuse me, I don't know why it's a frog in my throat. I have live stream starts, and like I should know how to do that. I should understand, like, it's funny how challenging some technology things are me. Like, I have this colleague, and I was meeting with her, and she goes, "Monica, how do you get that background?" And I go, "What do you mean? How do I get that background?" Well, it took us 10 minutes of discussion. This is a physical like barrier thing. She was trying to load it on her computer, so I'm like, I just miscommunicate with everybody. But anyway, it's surprising how not good I am at some technology. Like, I tried to have an Android once, as much as I use R. Like, you'd think that I'd like an open source um like cell phone, but I just couldn't get the Android. And I'm not a big fan of the Macintosh interface, the Apple interface, but I love the iPhone. So go figure me out. I don't know what's up with me. But anyway, when you think in terms of design, um, you sort of think about utility. And so I think maybe the iPhone interface is just really good for a smartphone, and I kind of like other interfaces for other things. Like, I'm kind of a minimalist, so our GUI interface is really nice for me. My intern uses our studio. I'm like, oh my God, all these windows, can't handle it. you know, I grew up when there was command prompt. We only had one window, and that was hard. But anyway, so let's see here. It's almost time to start the stream. Oh, time to start the stream. Okay, welcome everybody. This is official start. Today, this is Monika Wahi, and I'm opening the stream. We're going to start today to talk about SAS. And I decided to hold this for 2 hours. Hopefully, we'll get some more people to show up and I can do some demonstrations because now we have SAS On Demand for Academics, which is an online free version of SAS, which is like, okay, cool, let me use it. Well, if you're used to using SAS, like actually, Daniel in the chat, have you used SAS On Demand for Academics? Hello from the chat. Because I'm wondering, like, so Daniel's here is a SAS aficionado. If you're used to SAS, you know that there's sort of two main ways SAS is used. One is you have a server SAS implementation, like you work somewhere and they've got server SAS. The second one is where you have PC SAS. And those of you who've taken my LinkedIn learning courses, I show you I'm demonstrating on PC SAS. Well, now, those of you who follow my blog know that for a little while, SAS, oh, so you've used it, Daniel. Can you tell us, put in the chat what you think of it, like any of your first impressions? Um, so I would use PC SAS normally. I think Daniel uses server SAS because he does some really like hardcore stuff where you need the server. I was just kind of doing little things, but they have kind of like R and R Studio is kind of the same program, but it's different interfaces. The PC SAS and the server SAS, they're sort of different interfaces, but sort of the same, kind of the same way. Well, then SAS came out for a short time with it was called University Edition and it was free. And I was really happy that they did that because I was trying to get people to use SAS and you couldn't really use it. It's not like R that you just download and you can use it because it's made by a company, the SAS company, and they would have to sell it and they just wouldn't make like cheaper free versions. Those of you who have used SPSS, which is a statistical program, that's by IBM. And you can just buy like SPSS for some hundreds of dollars. SAS, you can do that with like PC SAS in like 2006 cost about $10,000 for just like the most basic like seat. I was working at this Alzheimer's Institute and they made us pay $10,000 for base SAS and SAS stat, if you know what I'm talking about, the SAS components. I was like $10,000 for this Alzheimer's Institute compared to R. Like, think about that. I was like, I'm downloading R. I got all mad. My boss is so sweet. He bought me the SAS. He's like, use the SAS, use it. Because at the time I said I downloaded R. We didn't have R at the time. We had S plus. I think R was just being invented. Let me see what Daniel says. Yes, I've used SAS on demand, though most of the time I use SAS installed on the server. Right. See, I was right because he does this hardcore. But what's your impression, Daniel, for like if somebody's new, if somebody knows other software the way you know SAS, and they're going to try and adopt SAS, they're going to try SAS. Do you think that they can get a good experience on SAS on demand for academics? That's the new free version. So for a while, SAS came out with this free version called University Edition. And, I'm sorry, it's confusing. Like that was UE, and they had that for a while. And I really wanted people to start using it because I had made some courses in SAS and I'd gone to some conferences, some data science conferences, and our users and Python users were like, how do we try SAS? Like, how do we try it? I was like, I guess you're right. How do you try it? And normally, how you would try SAS is you go to a college where they teach SAS. So the college would make a license with SAS, and then you could go to the college bookstore. Remember those? And pick up your SAS version. Back in the day, you had to install it with like CDs and stuff. Now you would download it and install it, and you could get PC SAS. Well, even that was kind of a headache to install PC SAS. So they started coming up with they said they had just had to come up with a solution that made it easy for people to try SAS or practice their SAS. Um, I hate to say this, but just like Microsoft been around for a long time, SAS has been around for a long time, and it's had different moods. And for a long time, SAS was very proprietary, like Microsoft. They did not want you were using all SAS or not. Like I would want to buy a teaching copy or something. No, no, either you're part of a SAS shop or you're not. Now they're doing the SAS R integration stuff. They're doing that. They were very late to the table on that. And I think you'll agree with me, Daniel, that they were late to the table on integration and a web and stuff. I mean, now they're here. They've got Via and everything. But they were very siloed. They wanted you to do the SAS system or not, right? And for a while they could do that. I mean, very long time. Like if you have a server SAS shop, it's very hard to dismantle. Like a lot of times people are like, "Oh, ggplot2, the plotting package in R," and they want to use it with their SAS data. And actually, it's a little hard to do because SAS was not really originally meant to be shared with R. But anyway, so for finally, SAS for a little while came up with SAS University Edition, but it just wasn't adoptable. Those of you who follow my blog, I put 4 blog posts showing you how to install it and run it. Like you had to install this appliance, and then you had to like you had to create some sort of account, and then you had to run all this stuff. Basically, you were setting up kind of a fake mainframe just so you could, make a frequency table. So it really wasn't I really just couldn't get people to adopt it. And I was like, I hope they come up with a solution for this. And then, like I thought, is there a way to make it less clunky? And at this time, I was writing my book. Those of you know who know I have a book. It was called Mastering SAS Programming for Data Warehousing. I was focusing on using SAS for data warehousing because you use it for a lot of things. So I just had this free version that was really kind of clunky, and a few times I was running into some issues with it, so I was contacting SAS and they didn't really support it. So I'm like, how do you have this free thing out there and you don't really support it? Well, what ended up happening is they took it down. It wasn't working. And if you go to my blog, you'll see I have a note up that directs you to another blog post, which is now for SAS ODA, SAS On Demand for Academics. So now it's a lot more reasonable to connect and use it. In fact, I've been really testing the limits of it recently. I've been trying to put big data sets into it and trying to do regression. And it's pretty sturdy. I think you could kind of use it. I'm impressed. I think SAS finally got it right this time. So good job, SAS. Today I first wanted to talk about why I think you should learn SAS. Why anyone should learn SAS if they're new to data science. If you already know SAS, like Daniel, yay, great, that's wonderful. Um, and I guess if you already know SAS, why you should keep up with your SAS. And here's why. And I kind of just alluded to it. If a place has set up a SAS server shop, like oh, hi there. Nice to see you. Thank you for showing up. If a place has set up a server SaaS shop, like somebody wrote to me and asked me, oh, it was you, Alexandra, what you should learn if you're in pharmacology. And I'm like, I have to learn SaaS, right? Because a lot of those, if you go to a drug company, I guarantee you, I've never even worked at one, but I guarantee you they've got server SaaS, right? And they have a lot of what's called macros. What macros are is automated functions that you actually build over time. If you read my book, you'll see you don't just wake up one day and make a macro. It's like over time, you do this thing over and over and you build this function, and then you make this automated function called a macro. And what's nice is, the thing runs. If you put this input in, it always runs right or whatever. And so they have all these macros for, half life and pharmacovigilance and stuff like that. Um, so one of the big things in SAS is not just ETL, like extract, transform, and load, managing the data, but it's also reporting. And so, like, especially financial places will have all these SAS reports. And the problem with that is SAS reporting language is so complex. And if anybody knows R, like I was teasing Daniel to learn R, but it's very hard to learn R if you're used to SAS because SAS is very self-referential language. And R is very object oriented. And it's just you have to think totally different way. Um, but in R, it's so easy to do like one little thing. Like if you want to just make a graph or just make a table. In SAS, it's just a much more it was built in like the early 70s. It's in a different environment, and it hasn't really changed much. I mean, they add on to it, but they don't really change how it runs. And so first of all, it's a miracle. It's a fantastic program, but it's very complicated. I like to sort of liken it to a like an iron lung, a very old machine that maybe you need to keep it going, or a very old like vehicle that they don't make anymore, and you need to keep the parts going and stuff. And that's the way SAS is. And at the end of the day, um, it's probably better to do reporting in R these days, but we're always limited by input output because SAS is the big data engine that does IO, that inputs data and outputs data, and you can control it. It's like a manual transmission. You can control it. Whereas in SQL, you have to rely on an optimizer, and in R, I recently got an error. I was just have thousands of data. So, you know, so we still need SAS, and we still need these SAS server setups. It's just that we're going to have to move a lot of the reporting out of it. We're going to have to move a lot. If it's a physical server SAS, you probably have to move the data into the cloud, like in Snowflake. Um, and you probably also, and then hook up SAS via all of this. So, those of you who are listening to me out there and you know Python and you know R, and you're like, why would I learn SAS? Well, how are we going to get all this data out? How are we going to do all that? I mean, it's in there, so somebody's going to have to know SAS, and nobody wants to learn it. My poor intern, she doesn't want to learn SAS. She's so good in She learned R. She learned R on her own. Like she's smarter than me. And then she learned Python on her own. And then SAS is like, I don't even want to do it. I mean, it's fun to do regressions in SAS, but that's doing regressions in SAS is like nothing, you know. Hello everybody. Feel free to start a side conversation if anything I say sounds interesting to you. But anyway, so that was the first part of our agenda. Is I was trying to explain to you, if you're a data scientist, why might you learn SAS now? If you're in one of those fields like pharmacology or health data science, or fintech, historically, weather, there's some places, some fields, um, and remember, if you go to my blog post, my data science toolkit, I tell you at the beginning of your data science journey, it's good to pick the field first, because we use different tools. We prefer different tools in different fields, not like you can't cross over. But in healthcare, where the SAS has been there forever. And yes, R and Python are great, but if you're going to be an epidemiologist like me, you're going to end up dealing with SAS. So you might as well learn it. You might as well just like eat your vegetables kind of and just face it. And you're going to have to learn SAS. But don't see it this way. Don't think you're going to learn SAS on a weekend. SAS takes a long time to learn. You got to practice it. I it's nicer. I would suggest learn R and learn Python because you can just learn them quick. But don't forget about SAS. Keep SAS in your journey somewhere. Keep it on the back burner at least, or work on it now and then. SAS is a good thing to do something in it and then forget about it and then try to do something in it again. And you're like, oh my God, I feel like I never seen this software before. But if you do that enough, like do something one week, forget about it, do something the next week, it's a surprise. I don't recognize it. Yeah, I guess I do. Forget about it. If you handle it that way, you'll start to sort of get to know SAS, because SAS is really odd. It's not like anything we would design today. Um, all right. So now, let's say you want to learn SAS. I've convinced you want to learn SAS. Um, I recommend three easy steps, right? So the first step I recommend is that you take my free online course. And so let me share my screen here and show it to you. So let's see here. Where is it? Here. Okay. So here we go. I'll put this link in the. Well, let me put it in the chat now. where's- okay. So, where am I? Here we go. So this is a free online course called Getting Started with SAS On Demand for Academics. And I just wanted to show you what's in here. Okay. Now, obviously, you don't have to take this course. You could just go set up SAS and just do it. Right. But the reason why I think you should take my free course is that I think Daniel will agree with me. If you really understand the history of how SAS was built and the design behind the language, it is much easier to learn the language. And it's hard because when you're young SAS person back in the 90s before they had really invented the internet, it was just like folklore. The only way you would learn this kind of information was from other older programmers, from reading SAS white papers, but there wasn't really anything that explained to you this information. So I just put it all together into a little course. And so the course takes about an hour to get through it, and it's just four sections. And what did it, or I guess five. So the introduction just explains what's going to be in the course. Um, Chapter two is a bunch of different videos and some short presentations. The presentations have screenshots, annotated screenshots that just explain what SAS is. And then there's a little quiz to try to help you remember just terminology and which applies to all the interfaces of SAS. Okay, and that's chapter two. Then chapter three is is just practical. It just explains to you how to set up yourself and SAS on demand for academics or SAS ODA and get started. And then chapter four is a challenge, which is just challenging you to get you set up and going in SAS ODA. And then there's a conclusion. And let me go back to my stream here. And so I made that course because I think it's worth it to go through all of that information before you even bother to try to learn the code, because the code just doesn't really make a lot of sense without really understanding the backstory with SAS. And I learned SAS in a classroom, like there was a lecturer, and that lecturer was kind of saying some of that stuff that I have in that course. But nowadays, that doesn't always get passed down. So that's why I think you should take that course. Okay. And it's free. So that's my favorite thing. Okay. So the steps that I recommend was, one is take that course, if you want to learn SAS. And second is that you actually learn the programming language, right? And so if you take my course, you'll get set up in it. And then as I mentioned, I wrote a book called Mastering SAS Programming for Data Warehousing. And that forced me to write a bunch of code for SAS that runs, right? And put it on GitHub. So I have all this GitHub code. So what I've been doing is, the course I just showed you, I'm going to try and my goal is to make these 23 courses to get through all of that code, to teach that code from the book. You don't have to buy the book, but it's nice if you buy the book. If you want to learn how to run a data warehouse, I strongly encourage that book if you're thinking about management. Okay. If you're not thinking about management, the book is still interesting. If you just like to read books, I strongly recommend it. I think it's very dramatic. I think I'm a good writer, but maybe only in my own mind, right? It's got a pretty good reviews on Amazon. But anyway, so the next part is learning how to program in SAS well enough so that you can do stuff, right? Um, so let me just start demonstrating a little bit SAS here. So I'm gonna see if I know how to. I can do this here. Let's see here. I'm gonna go to the right. Okay, when you when you start SAS, what happens is you go to this login screen. First, you have to create a free account with SAS, and it's not. You can see I'm logged in here, and actually, you won't be able to see this. Um, uh, I can put the link for you afterwards. I'll put the link in the or you can probably look it up how to go to SAS on demand for academics online. Because what will happen is, I think if I just put this welcome in here, it'll make you I think it'll make you go to a registration page. Because what happens is then you register and you come in, and it's a big deal when you register because this is your account on SAS according to SAS. So if you actually buy anything like a server SAS, this is on your account. And if you do help desk tickets and stuff, this is your real account. So don't Mickey Mouse it or anything. Put your real data in and really validate it. Put a nice long password. Okay. But then you get this panel, and I don't know what these other things are. SAS Studio is SAS on demand for academics. That's what we want. Okay. And so let's see here. If I click on it, it's going to open. And let's see here. All right. So it went away here. Let me see if I can share the screen here. Oh, thanks. Daniel put in the chat. Thank you. So let's just that's Studio. Yeah, here. Okay, so now so where am I? Now I'm where I would be if let me just make sure this is showing here. Yeah. Yeah, this is right. So this is where I would be if I clicked that link, okay? So I'm going to just talk about generically what's going on in this window here. As you can see, I've got a panel here. I can actually move this back and forth here. So this is looks like a programming window, but see there's tabs across here. I could open more files here, and then there's tabs here. This says code, log, results, okay? And sometimes there's other stuff here too. So this is kind of complicated over here, but they managed to get it to work cuz those of you who are used to server SAS and other kinds of SAS know there's a million windows, right? And then over here, this is kind of like it kind of looks like I'm on a SAS server, and this is where my files are. Now, I created these folders. I call them just F and H, and this was default. I don't know why that was there, and X. And this is I usually just name them one letter because you have to retype that a lot. Um, I make it a lib name, as you can see in this code I have open here. It says set lib name for project. See, this is a comment here in green. It's got kind of a little editor in it, then libname F, and see this reference to this location. That's to this folder. Why? Well, I was helping someone with some homework and I was making some code with them. So I wanted to all save it in this folder. And I want you to notice, those of you who actually do read my book, um, this are my naming conventions for the code. And you can see these are all code files. Um, Here we have read in data. Let's see here. This is question one, question two. Like we were doing some homework. And you see this 900 here. I put stuff under 900 if I was working on something. Then you can see there's a bunch of other kinds of files. These are code files. This is like a CSV. And this is a SAS 7B DAT. So this is a SAS data set. And this is a CSV. And just out of convenience, I was just helping someone with their homework. I threw all this stuff in here. Also, if I generated any data sets in here, I just threw it in this F. Okay. So, and again, I'm looking under here, but there's other things in here. There's like tasks and utilities and snippets and all that. Here are the libraries. Now, you saw how I mapped F there. We also have a library called work, but work is if anything ends up in work, it goes away when your session is over. And so that's why it's good to actually have lib names and folders over here. And then so that's the beginning. So maybe I'll go over here. Any questions from anybody? Um because then I was going to go over and sort of show you some of the just some of the code that was from this homework assignment, because it's sort of revealing and those of you who take my course, that you learn about SAS, you'll understand about, looking at this code. So this code here, you'll notice that the first one is called formats, okay? In SAS, so let's talk about data in general. There's two kinds of data, right? There's continuous data, or like numerical continuous data, and then there's categorical data. See this proc format here? See this value sex underscore F, 1 equals men, 2 equals women. You can kind of tell what's going on there. This is a label that's going to be applied to a field. It doesn't say which one here, but if that field says 1, it's going to display men, and if that field says 2, it's going to display women. Now, let's say I had a continuous variable. I could do this too. Let me see if I had one. I don't have one in here. But like let's say if I had like systolic blood pressure, I could have ranges of it be labeled a certain way. And that's actually kind of a trick. And you're probably, well, what are these formats for? Well, these are what would show up on reports. Like you could put these labels on reports, because remember SAS was programmed like the 70s. You could only save like one in a field. Like you couldn't save men in the field, right? So this is the workaround, is to create these formats, and then you apply the formats, okay? And so this is the format file that I make to create the formats. And in fact, if I run this, it's me running it. See, here's the log. You always look at the log, right? And you go to the top, you start reading it. These are system options. See, the library reference was successfully assigned here. It's nice and blue. That means everything worked out. And then this is just my comments. And this is SAS talking back to me. So I created a format called sex underscore F. Format sex underscore F has been output. Now, I had this in code. When I used to run the data warehouse, when we'd start unfortunately, they wouldn't give it to me, and they wouldn't give me a server, or they wouldn't give me SQL. I was trying to set up some sort of SQL integration. They wouldn't do that. So we had to run anything in PC SAS, which is so slow. Don't do it. So what we do is we'd open a SAS file. We'd open this file and we'd load these formats. Like I ran it and now they're loaded in memory. But before we started at ETL, we'd have to actually apply the formats. I think I do that here because I think that was her homework assignment. Yeah, her homework assignment had something to do with the Framingham data set. Any of you might know about that. Generally, if you're a professor and you're listening here, or a teacher, don't use old data sets like Framingham, because it's really hard to teach with them, because we don't know, like, smoking's bad for you and stuff. Okay, so this maps the lib name. I have a habit of mapping lib names at the top of my code because I just get sick of it. And this is a classic data step. For their homework, they were given this data set in SAS 7B DAT format. So SAS wasn't going to have any problems with it. So I read it in using the set statement, and I named it fram underscore SAS underscore A. And I'm putting it in work. So let's just go and do that. See, notice how now we have the output data um, uh, pane here. We didn't have that before. And see up here, it says work dot fram SAS. So this is the name of the data set. This says it's in work. Actually, let's go look at work here. Let's see here. Yeah, work. Ah, here it is. And see, here's all the variables in it. And I guess they're just checked off. And what you can do is you can see them over here. Actually, this is really nice, because before, in SAT, like here, I can see that there's a missing variable here. It's kind of nice, but you can't really scroll. Like, you want to scroll up and down like this, but you really have to actually go like this to go to the next one, and it can get really slow. But it's just nice to quickly look at it. And then there's information about the variable, like here, like you can look down here. I don't really use that, but I I would tell you, people who program in SAS have done a lot. See, I'm having trouble navigating. Do a lot in SAS, like with formats and stuff. I don't. I try to stay out of SAS. I do all my curation. I do everything outside of SAS except for like I'll even do ETL outside SAS if I can get away with it. I try to use SAS for the least amount, but I have to say SAS is perfect for like proc survey reg, like all the procs that are for like regression and stuff. It's so much better to use SAS. Like it's just so much better. And so it's like if you can find a way to make your data in some other program, do it. But the problem is getting it into the SAS environment afterward. Here, let me go back to see if anybody's asked any questions. Oh, I guess not. All right. So so let's see here. Let me go back to this. All right. So then for her assignment, so here's reading a data set in. So the set is F dot Framingham here. Oops, I'm looking at the wrong thing here. So F dot and then Framingham over here. Here's the and now it's in a work named Fram SAS A. Okay. Now we've got a proc. Proc contents is going to say the contents of this. So let's run this proc here. Work from. Why doesn't it say that? Maybe it forgot, or maybe it's too far down. Okay, here it is. Here's a proc content. See, it came over in the results. So let's look at this here. This is the data set name. Now notice how standardized this thing is. Back in the olden days before R existed, it was really hard to program software. Like if you programmed this is a report. Like if you programmed a report, it was so hard that your idea was you're going to just put everything on that report. Anything anybody would ever want to need, you put on that report. That's why, like, if you do anything like, let me see if I've got something here. No. Let's see here. Like if you have a relatively simple, let's see here. This is me importing a CSV using proc import. I guess let's see if that works. Yep. So here, this is proc survey freak. This is why you want to use SAS, right? Because this does a survey regression, like proc survey freak. You specify the data. This is the hugest proc in the world, right? We're specifying the data is this analytic data set, which I ETL'd somewhere else and logged in. This is the weight column because this is a weighted regression. Strata and cluster, these have to do with the units, the sampling units. And these are the tables. These are going to make me weighted tables. Okay. And so I'll show you here. Now, we'll see how fast this goes on. Now, if you were on server SAS, this would be like you click that and you wouldn't even believe how fast it is. But before we look at our results, you should always make a habit of going to your log and starting there. So we go to the top here and we see the code. It usually repeats the code back. Okay, so it's trying to tell us that there might be some instability in our proc survey reg because some of the clusters are small, but I didn't care. You don't see any errors. Just to show you what an error looks like here, let's leave the semicolon off of mail. See what happens. Okay, imagine we're typing so fast we don't notice that. Now when we write it here, so I know what we did wrong, right? Is we left the semicolon, but look at what happened. It says variable table not found. What the heck is that, right? So that's just a great example of how really common mistakes in SAS are really hard to troubleshoot. Okay. And so if you're probably wondering why all this is formatted the way it is, it's really just so I can make sure that I can troubleshoot anything that I'm doing in SAS because it's really hard to it's just really hard to like if you can imagine me putting all this in order, it would be really hard for me to find that was missing. So, but anyway, so I thought I'd go back here. Um, let's see here. So I showed you this formats. This loads these formats. Let's get rid of this. And then this reads in the data. We have here, oh, here, remember how I said that I was at this job and we were stuck with PC SAS, which is not a bad program, but our data were huge and we needed to store it in like Oracle or Microsoft SQL or something, not PC SAS or SAS server, which I didn't want to set up one. And so I was having so much trouble with that. Um, and I normally what you use in SAS to do data management are data steps like what I was showing you. Like this is a data step here, this data set. Um, but when SQL was invented, a lot of SQL programmers had trouble adopting SAS because they're not used to the data step language. So the SAS created this sub language. Remember how I mentioned macros? That's seen as a sub language. And so SAS also created this other sub language called proc SQL. Um, so here is an example of proc SQL. I showed you, I think I ran all of these first. You have to run everything in order. Let me just make sure I run all this first. And that's a good shape. Oh yeah, so I was showing you this contents. I forgot what this is. Yeah, this was that Framingham data set. So there's a whole bunch of old-fashioned variables in there. Close this. See, it's hard to kind of navigate this thing here. Okay, so then here's the code. See, I'm going back and forth here. So let's look at what this says. So proc SQL. So already that's what's weird, right? Because see this proc contents that we just ran? Proc contents data equals blah. Like you usually have a whole bunch of stuff. But way proc SQL works is you declare it and then you put all of your commands in between that and quit and then you put a run. Normally you put just a run, but here you have to put quit and run. Okay, that's what happens when you didn't think of it to begin with and then they invent SQL and then you have to do this. So what does this say? This says create table fram underscore a from select all at select all from F Framingham. So this is just doing the same thing here, renaming the table a different name, but just using proc SQL. So let's see what happens when we run this. And so when I was doing my data warehouse, the problem I had, this looks like it ran. We can go here. Yeah, it looks good. The problem I had is I could not get good input output efficiency from proc SQL. I just couldn't do it. And so I was like, I was using PC SAS. Now, if I had been using a server, maybe I've asked people this question since then, like people who I know have a SAS shop and a server. And I'm like, is proc SQL? And I've tried to Google it. I think nowadays, now just to remind you, proc SQL kind of relies on some artificial intelligence of optimization, you know. So maybe if you're a really good data stepper, probably you're better than proc SQL. I would guess, but I don't know. I haven't been able to figure it out. If you know, tell me. Um, all right, and then let's see here. So these are import risk tables. Let's see, validate import. So this is importing. I'll just run this whole thing. I don't know I forgot what the rest of the code does. So I just wanted to make sure. So, I run this whole thing. It's been days. So I'll last look at it. But I just scroll up through the log. I don't see any errors, so I feel pretty good, right? So this was 105 that I ran. So let's open 115 here. So I revamped the live name here, and it says need to remove rows for rand IDs for people who had BP meds equal 1 at baseline. So this creates a table of IDs with a flag. So let's create table BP med IDs as select rand ID. This is the ID from fram B. I guess I must have advanced the name of it, where BP meds equals 1 and period equals 1. And then I did alter table to add this exclusion flag. And then I run this content. So one of the things you end up doing a lot is you'll do an ETL step like this, and then you'll do a contents. Like in R, what I'll do is an ETL step, and I'll do n row the ETL step, and then n row to verify if I'm removing rows, or if I'm adding columns, I'll do end call sometimes. Let's run this and see what happens. File or from B. Yeah, so see, that's what an error looks like. I guess something didn't run from my last. Yeah, it looks like something didn't happen from my last code. So probably this isn't the best code to demonstrate it. Um, Let me go look at what we've got under X. Here we've just got some data, and notice how I just clicked on it. This is from the BRFSS. I just kind of threw it in here in case I wanted to demonstrate anything. You probably recognize that. Let me go back to the chat and just see if anybody's got any questions. Let me take a drink too. Okay, so let's not do a little programming for. I'll come back to that. Okay, so let's say, so I get this question a lot from people because they taking courses in data science, and not necessarily SAS, just any courses in data science. And it's not that hard to learn programming. And so if you want to learn programming, like I have 2 courses on LinkedIn Learning in SAS. But there's different ways to learn SAS. There's other SAS courses on LinkedIn Learning. I think Data Camp has them. And then also I want to tell you, SAS itself has a lot of courses. It's got like you can go through what used to happen like in the 90s and early 2000s is you'd want to learn SAS and you want to get hired. And let's say you got your master's degree in statistics, but then you still wanted to be competitive. So what SAS would do is put you through these certifications, and sometimes your workplace would pay for them, and they're very expensive, and I don't have any of them. And the reason I don't have any of them is the certifications would teach all those things I try to avoid doing in SAS because I don't think they're a good idea. And I guess the reason they would teach that is because they need to maintain these old systems. But I was like, no, these systems are very expensive. Like if you have a programmer and they cost $100 an hour, and it takes them a lot longer in SAS to program the ETL than in R, then SAS is a very expensive um, language. And that's been the problem with SAS for a very long time is it's very hard to program. It takes a long time. Like things that take like 1 or 2 steps in R take like 5 steps in SAS. And so if you've got SAS programmers, you're paying like 3 times as much for anything they do. And so my idea is to just minimize what they do. The other thing that we had problems with is we had very bad IO, input and output. So sometimes our SAS programmers were really good. They were contractors that were really good, but the problem is sometimes I'd see her angrily playing solitaire because the PC SAS we were stuck with was slow. Now, if you're wondering, well, why did you have so much trouble getting a SQL Server when you had PC SAS? Like, isn't that easy? We even had an instance of SQL Server. What happens is if you're a woman and you run a data center, everybody's just trying to take you down. Like I knew it would happen, or I didn't know it would happen. It didn't happen the last time I ran a data thing, but I got lucky. This time they just try to take me down. They starve you of staff. They try to make sure you don't have any staff. They try to make sure you don't have a budget. And like this problem, they made sure I didn't have the software I needed, or So this is how women are just thrown under the bus in the workplace, and that's why we don't run data warehouses very much. And so but anyway, so therefore my data warehouse that I was running, I don't think it exists anymore. If you look around for it, it's not really clear if it exists or it was moved to another command. It was at the army. Um, but anyway, so it's important to use the right thing for the right purpose. And if you're actually at a SAS server, if we had a SAS server, it wouldn't have been any problem, but we didn't. Okay. So, but now today, if you're learning SAS today, why are you doing it, right? Well, maybe it's because you want a job working at a SaaS place. Maybe not. But let's say it is. Then the next thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to apply that knowledge. And that's why I'm so happy we have SAS on demand for academics. It's because then you can apply the knowledge. Now, a lot of you, if you've seen my live streams or other, even just my YouTube channel, you'll know that I put up on my blog an example of, I guess, what you call a portfolio project, which I'm going to share here. So here you go, and I can put it in the chat here. Always getting slowly more adept. Okay. Now, as it turns out, whoops, as it turns out, I used R for this example. Okay. At the time I made it, which is a while back, I had to use R because we didn't really have SAS, right? What I did was, those of you probably seen this before, but I like to go to the casinos. I live in Massachusetts, and we only have 3 casinos. And because our casinos are regulated, they have to donate, they have to put in some data, report some data to the state. And I found the data online and see where it is here. And I also added like other data, like I found some data from the American Gaming Association, just public data. And I made some charts and made some recommendations for them. And this is a great example of a portfolio project. And it's because I'm hoping, maybe they'll hire me and my friend. I've got a fintech data scientist friend that I like to go to the casino with because, to be honest with you, I haven't been very happy with this casino because I'm a vegetarian and their restaurants don't have a lot of vegetarian options. But let's say that I wanted to update this. Maybe I would do it in SAS, right? But until now, I couldn't really do it in SAS. Now we've got the SAS ODA, so it's possible to do. Um, so one of the things that I was going to do, let me show you what I was going to make. Those of you who, let me see here. Okay, what I'm sharing here is a web page. It's a blog post. Um, Let me see. I put it in the chat. Um, it's a blog post I made about my free course. And the reason is well, of course, I wanted to explain stuff about it. Um, and here's me explaining stuff about it. But what I wanted to do was lay out um, kind of a learning path and all the different courses. I've only made the first two, the free one and the first of the series, because I don't have that many people taking it yet. After I make the rest of them, you can see there's a learning path here. The data warehouse manager would take these, the beginner programmer would take these, and the advanced programmer would take these. Because some of these are just for programming, it just teaches you how to program, and some of these are more for the data warehouse manager. Um, and again, this is based on the code that I made for my book. Um, as you can see, like one of the big questions I have is using SAS macros, which I mentioned before. And actually, let me just say something about macros before we go too far. Let's see here. So, a lot of people have questions about macros. They're like, Monica, I'm scared of macros. You should be, okay, because they are scary. But what I tell them is relax. Macros only come after you're frustrated with your code because you have to keep rerunning it. So macros are really only for automated functions. And how do you know you want to automate a function? It's because you're doing it all the time. So if you are doing a research study where you're going to analyze the data and do a regression, then it's over, you probably don't want any macros. The macros are really for like production stuff. Um, and like low ETL. That's what I would use it for in the warehouse. Macros are good for reporting. And actually, I should probably, let's see here. I can show you my let's see here. If you go to my, oh, by the way, so I put up the Celebrate Black History. Look at these Black women in data science and in science, who I follow. I think one of them I'm really excited about, who is Dr. Sellers. She was named an ASA fellow, so she does stuff with distributions and dispersion. So if you come over here, you'll see I have two playlists: SAS Reporting Macros for beginners and SAS ETL Macros for beginners. And these are nice because they just kind of explain here. Well, you probably know where my channel is, but I can just show you. They're so that what's nice about those is they're I'm just emphasizing the philosophy behind the macros. The coding is really simple because when you make macros, they usually end up being pretty involved because you're automating something that you do every month or every time you load the data, and you have to sometimes set conditions on it, um like I show a simple example of setting conditions. Let's see here, how to view the contents. Yeah, this conditional macro. Because sometimes like you'll do this batch processing, but there's a few variables that don't follow exactly the rules. So you have to put a condition in. And so you can kind of get the feel for that. And also I put up my recommended SAS white papers. Um, so macros are always just a topic I get people asking about. Um, Let me see here. Another topic I get, well, I get a lot on data steps and also arrays. And I tried to post some things on arrays too. Actually, let me go back to the list of let's see here. These are the courses I plan to make. Um, some of these are very important to managers. The ones on the with the X on the way left are important to managers. Um, And these are the ones that if you want to be a data warehouse manager, you definitely want to read this book because this will be good. Um, oh, there was something I wanted to show you I saw recently. Um, One thing that SAS can do, SAS Via and SAS not Via, I think SAS Enterprise, and that is make dashboards. But please don't do it. It's not a good idea. Okay. One of the dashboards that was made was the COVID-19 dashboard that was made in SAS. Not good. And recently, I've been working with a colleague, and she showed me this this database that's online, and I think it's in SAS, and I'm going to show it to you. I'm pretty sure it's in SAS because it just doesn't even really run very well. So let me go find it. Let's see here. Uh, G, let's see here. Global. I should have done this before I got on. Global burden of disease. GBD database. Here it is. Okay, let me see if I clicked. Actually, the reason I'm coming slow now is I'm having trouble connecting. Okay, let me whoops, clicked on the wrong thing. Okay, so let me go to here it is. Okay, and I'll give you where I am here. I'll put that in the chat. Okay. So this I think I'm pretty sure is a SAS front end. Okay. So what's going on here? Um this is ostensibly querying the global health data exchange, but I would not really recommend this database. And it's because I do not think it's well curated. If you dig around in it, you can find some documentation for what you need. But I really do not think it is very clear. Um, it's hard to tell what countries, what data is available in what countries. It's just hard to tell all of that stuff. Um, you've seen me probably in other live streams where I point out places that have really good data curation, just makes it really easy to design your study. This is the opposite. The data curation is horrible. Okay. So let's say that you want to do this query. Okay. And remember, this is a global burden of disease database. So it's for comparing disease in countries. And so let's just try to do that here. Um, I'm not really sure. I guess I'm going to leave this on global, or maybe we'll do location. Yeah, here, let's. So we want to choose something. See how these are grouped like hierarchically? Well, what if I don't want those groups, right? What will happen is if I choose, like for example, let's say I choose Poland and I choose Estonia, um, then they're going to come out in their own strata, right? And see how you cannot really see your selections here. And then this is the most recent year. Let's just throw that in there. And then this says cause. Later, when I experiment with this, I realized that changing this changes this form. We won't change it now, but apparently you can query other data sets, and that's what this does. So this is age, and I guess we have all ages. And then this says metric, number, percent, and rate. And I'll leave them all there. And then measure, it says deaths and dollies. Now remember, these things, these years lived with disability and stuff, these are really BSE calculations. And the reason they're BSE is because these countries, the data that goes into these, who knows? I mean, they're validated on weird data. You know, I don't totally reject these because I think you need a metric to compare countries, but individually, I would never look at these. You know, so I think like prevalence is what we want, and then sex is all and cause is all. Okay. So now we click search, I guess. Um, now the person I was helping with this, we were trying to request data from them, and they were like, "Well, you can download it, but we would have to download this, right?" And this doesn't even look right. Okay, so here's Estonia and Poland, and here's like the number, the percent, and the rate, and the percent is. Oh, I guess we didn't choose prevalence, cause. Oh, we didn't choose a cause. Let's choose a cause. See, and this is where we ran into trouble. Because if you want to just choose like can you imagine using this? This is awful. I don't even know. Like I think you can type. Yeah, there's no COVID in here. Let's see here. Oh, this is 2019. Why don't we do cardiovascular disease? Okay, this is a fun one. Okay, now we'll search. But at least we get to see who's 100% in here. Okay. So, what do we have here? We have all causes. I guess I accidentally chose all causes and cardiovascular. Okay, so in Poland, here's the number of people, and this is the confidence interval. Where does this come from? Remember earlier I was showing you proc survey reg? Um, it's not that, but one of those procs will take um weighted data sets and come out with this. And the prevalence, so in Poland, the prevalence of cardiovascular disease is about 11%. Whereas in Estonia is probably 15%. Well, let's just see what it's like in the US maybe, right? Oops. Okay. Now when I search again, um oh good, I didn't lose it. Lost it before when I was working with my colleague. Okay. Now here we've got all causes. Okay. So in the US, we've got about 12%. I don't really believe that, because most of it's undiagnosed, right? Do you really believe that we're that close to Poland and Estonia? Like I just have trouble believing it. And think of how painful it is to do this query. Like, can you believe it's 2022 and this is what you're doing with SAS, right? So that's my like long demonstration to say that you should not use SAS for dashboards. I mean, I guess if you're stuck to doing it, go ahead and do it. But try to use like RStudio, try to use something open source because actually I just published a book chapter with my intern, and it's on like dashboarding and the ethical side of dashboarding. When you make a dashboard, people should be able to tell where the data is coming from and all that. They shouldn't it shouldn't be confusing, and it shouldn't be like misleading. And like that dashboard I was just looking at, it's very confusing and very misleading. And if that was an attempt at open government data, that was a failed attempt because I can't get the data out. I can't use it. And I'm trying to, a lot of times people get mad when I complain about their data applications, but I ask them, what did you intend the functions to be in this application? Because every application can't do everything. What is the goal of this? That's why it's nice with R. You've got these packages. You can custom make a function for that particular situation, and then just deploy it there. But and I do care. I am cognizant of that SAS was built in a different era. SAS sort of gets a pass because it was just amazing to build it in the first place. So yes, you run a proc contents, you're going to get all the contents you ever wanted. You run a proc freak, that's a frequency. You're going to get more output than you ever wanted, right? But at least you get output. Um, now that's overkill, and it's a lot easier, like it's harder to sort of suppress SAS's output than it is to just use R. So that's why I'm trying to encourage people to at least learn SAS, because you're going to have to do some SAS R integration. You probably will. Um, and also, a lot of times people have trouble learning SAS, and I can't say I'm the best SAS programmer in the world, but I can help you figure it out, because if you've run a data warehouse and you're the top, you have to figure out everything. And so if you ever have a SAS problem or you're trying to do a project, we can work together. I do a lot of mentoring at SAS, and help I can help you with whatever part of the project you're working on. Um and basically what I often do is I often get a white paper. So let me, maybe I'll share my screen here. We'll do let's see here. It says I'll go back to this one here. So imagine you wanted to learn uh like how to do a data pipe, right? Data pipe SAS white paper. See how I'm doing this query? It showed up on there, did it? Yeah. So notice the kind of results I'm getting. This one says support.sas.com. Okay. And it says these numbers. That's not going to be a SAS white paper. That's going to be SAS support. Now, I don't want to ding SAS support because they're very comprehensive, but I have trouble using it. I only use SAS support if I want to know like details about the procs or the function. I do not use it if I'm troubleshooting code, because they usually don't have code snippets or examples, right? So here, down here, this says MWSUG. That stands for Midwest SAS User Group. Whenever you see SUG, that's probably good because it's actually users. So let's actually open this. Just see what it looks like. Um, yeah, it is a SAS white paper. You probably can't see it because I opened another window. Um, Now, can you see it? I'm getting used to it. Yeah. So so this is a SAS white paper, and if you're like, well, SAS commands pipe and call execute, dynamically advancing from strangers to your new BFF, best friends forever. You're probably wondering, is this real? And the answer is yes, it's real. All of the SAS white papers are real and they're really important. Like they'll really help you in life. So it's hard to believe, right? Where are they? They're all over the place. Like you can kind of find them. Like here, you'll see some are posted at a school. Whenever you see Lex Jansen, I think there are some consultants that do a lot of SAS white papers. Here's another one. This one, like all of these, usually come from a user group meeting, but sometimes tell. Like I see this 2012 up here, and that probably means that was some meeting in 2012. But they never get old because SAS never really innovates. Like these little details, like whatever they build, they don't rebuild it. And um, so this file name statement still runs the same way unless they maybe tweak it a little bit, but that's it. And so SAS white papers are kind of like were there before the internet was there, and you'd pass them around, and that was kind of how you got through things. So what I'll do is I'll go and I'll try to find, if I'm trying to help a customer, I'll try to go find like a SAS white paper that matches what their issues are. And then I go and I try to use that um, those examples in the programming. Let me see here. I like literally it looks like nobody showed up. Like it's here's the problem, right? I've got this little counter on here that says there's 0 people here. But it has said that the whole time, and there've been people talking, so I don't really know how many people are really here. So if anybody's actually here and you wanna continue the stream with me, probably now you should say something because I'm thinking like nobody's here, and I'll probably just end the stream. I thought more people would show up because who wants, anything better than like a SAS brunch, right? Like your food tastes pretty good, but just add a little sass, it's gonna taste better. I guess it's just not a popular thing. Well, anyway, those of you who did show up, thank you for coming. And I guess I should have probably advertised this a little bit more. Um, and the next time I will. And then also don't forget to come to my channel. I'm going to try, I've been a little busy lately, but I'm going to try and put up some more videos. I've been writing some papers, and I'm going to try and take some code that from those papers and do some blog posts and put it up there. All right. Well, thanks to everybody who did show up. And so I'm going to sign off early, and have a good Sunday if you're watching this. And if you're watching this, have a good day.